All right, Wall Street winners, welcome to Tuesday, March 5th. And as we are pre-market, it is about 8:10 Eastern time. So about an hour and 20 minutes until the market's open today. And you can see we had a bit of an off day yesterday. The Dow was off about 100, the S&P was down about 6, but still well above 5,000 at 5130, which was kind of a breaking point for it to get past. Crude this morning is down again, down about 80 cents, 79 cents. Bitcoin is exploding upwards based on the halving that's coming in the next 40 days. And that typically does send it upwards at that point in time. And then you've got the NASDAQ futures off about 100, and the VIX still hovering, the 30-day VIX hovering about just under 14, so at a relatively good level there, suggesting good confidence within the market. If we look at what's going on in the different sectors today, we can see a little bit of movement in the pre-market in some of the health and retail areas. I think we saw the transport take a bit of a turn downward yesterday. CNR started down, ended down. And then we get into oil. Oil is interesting because a bunch of the oil stocks popped yesterday and the utilities. So to see Con Ed, as an example, which is one I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, go up $2, 2.5% in a day, up to 89.13, is a pretty big surprise to the upside for a company and an industry that is pretty stable and not experiencing any revolutionary growth in revenue or profits. So we saw this move back up to 89. Just within the last 2 weeks, it was down as low as the high 85. So this is the type of thing that I encourage you to look at in terms of strategic purchases. So I think about it similar to going to the mall and finding things that are on sale and waiting for a sale to come before purchasing them. So if you can get in on something like this and make a $4 type profit in less than 2 weeks, that's a significant percentage gain. And it's not something that you have to do every day or every week. I mean, if you're making 2 to 4% in a 5-day period, and you can replicate that even just 4 or 5 times a year, your return is extremely significant. And you're out of the market in cash, risk averse, so that you have an opportunity to buy should the market dip. So that's kind of the fundamental strategy that I try to implement on a regular basis. And that's what I'm encouraging you to consider. Totally up to you as to whether you do it, but something to definitely consider. If we scroll down through the oil list, you've got Valero. Valero took a huge spike. I'm a huge Valero fan, obviously. I thought and predicted back in January that Valero would go into the mid 140s, and it's there now. But I don't think that we're going to see it stay up there. In fact, I think there's a correction coming, as I've been talking about, for a number of the different stocks for quite in the coming month, probably in the month of March, maybe up until mid-April. And it'll present an incredible buying opportunity if you do have some cash on the sidelines and some dry powder to buy back in. So, I mean, take a look at these different opportunities as they arise. I think with crude, unless we see a pop up into the high 79s or into the 80s, I'm not sure if we're going to see a ton of movement to the upside in crude. We may actually see a little bit of a correction in crude if it continues to go down today, pulling the rest of them down. We are seeing a bit of a correction in tech right now. We saw, as I talked about, I think in yesterday's pre-market update, we saw Palo Alto dip down into the low 290s, which I did anticipate it may do. That was a great buying opportunity to then get out as it got back up into the high 290s and take a bit of a profit there. So pay attention to another potential move like that today. CRM as well, if you see a dip there that's significant, it might be a buying opportunity for a longer term position in those two holdings. And then one of the other stocks that I'm watching and following closely in the next few weeks is Workday. So Workday had a big drop yesterday, 6.5%. And I feel that was a pretty good buying opportunity. It looks like pre-market, it's down another almost a little more than 0.5%, almost 0.75% there, down to 271.20. Another potential buying opportunity. And yesterday, if you were to buy it here, it did pop back up a little bit. So you could get in and get out in the same day with a few dollars profit, or potentially more, depending on what the stock does. But I do feel like we're in for some correction within the tech space, because everything is just kind of being lifted by those semiconductors, and it's getting to a point where the earnings are getting a little out of alignment with reality. You can see again, pre-market NVDA up $12, almost $13. I mean, that does bode well for the greater market. So keep an eye on what the semis are doing. When the semis take a major switch to the red, we're going to see that hit the NASDAQ extremely hard and probably trickle down to the Dow stocks as well, and those stocks not listed on the NASDAQ. Google has dropped off significantly in the last week. I think it's extremely attractive at 134.20. This is a stock that is definitely going to be in the 150 to 175 range by the end of this year. So if you were just looking to put some money in and just sit and wait, I think Google is going to be a great play. You've got Adobe. Adobe's announcing results in 9 days. So obviously not this week, but next week. And I think that you're going to be looking at some positive earnings results coming out of Adobe, strong cash flow coming out, anticipated to come out of Adobe. And I think that will lift this stock back up into the low to mid 600s when we get those, or just shortly after we get those announcements. And then finally, if we look at the financials had a good day yesterday. In particular, Morgan Stanley up about 3.5% to 4%. You had Goldman that was up yesterday. So some of the bigger names. M&T, a surprising uplift there. I'm still very leery of the regional banks in the US right now because of the potential issues around commercial and multifamily mortgages coming due this year, and just the sheer significance of those that could potentially affect bank reserves and have other negative impacts on the regional banks, which typically hold that paper. So that's where we are today. Good luck with your trades. Pay attention to what the market and your individual stocks that you're following or holding are doing. And don't be afraid to take some profits when you're up 1 or 2%. You can always buy back in at a more attractive price in the future if they pop back down during a bit of a downturn. So good luck today.